How good my review of It Follows, directed by David Robert Mitchell, a horror art film that follows a 19-year-old girl who becomes targeted by a physical altering entity who only pursues people who have had sex with those who have been previously cursed. So yes, for those who are wondering, this film is about a 19-year-old girl who has had sex with this boy who has been cursed. Basically what happens is that he had sex with somebody who had the curse previously. And so now he's cursed, and now he's trying to get rid of the curse, so he has sex with this girl who is the protagonist, and now she is trying to basically get rid of this curse as well. However, if she dies, then what will happen is that the entity will target him again, and if he dies, then it will basically work its way down the line. However, what happens if the entity runs out of people? Well, the film doesn't discuss that, but it doesn't really matter. Now, I don't know about all of you out there, but when I first heard of this premise, I just thought it sounded absolutely hilarious because, just listen to it. It's about a girl who, has sex with this person, and now this entity is trying to kill her. It just sounds kind of funny. Obviously, this entity is an allegory for STDs. It's also an allegory for, I think, the emergence of adulthood, responsibilities, all that stuff that comes with having sex with somebody or being intimate with somebody. Not just physically, but mentally as well. And I'll be honest, I've yet to fully decipher this film, albeit I've only seen it once, and it's only been just a couple of hours since I've seen the film, so please do cut me some slack. I'm not going to be the biggest expert on this thing. The fact that I'm saying all this is pretty impressive considering that this is a horror film. And I'm going to be honest with you all out there, the reason why I don't do a whole lot of horror movie reviews is because, well, a lot of them suck. It's just the same old shit over and over and over again. In fact, I don't even have to watch the film to even tell you how bad they are. Just watching the trailers just tells me all I need to know. All those little tropes, the whole quiet, quiet, quiet bang thing, featuring kids in peril, them yelling mommy, there's a toy, coming alive, featuring a Tiny Tim song. No originality whatsoever, nothing creative, just a whole lot of crap. And it's just like, really, people like this stuff? Look, if you do, fine, but I can't stand it. Now, there are some good horror films like The Conjuring and Sinister. They're nothing that is I would really go back and revisit, but as just films to watch, I thought those were good. You also have The Babadook, which I thought was good, but not great. It works better as a psychological thriller than a horror film. However, it still pretty much does the same old tricks that we've already seen, many, many times before. In other words, what makes The Babadook different for a lot of people is what everything in the film means. However, like I've said, it's kind of still doing the things that I've seen, before. As for It Follows, this is probably the best horror-related film that I've seen since Trick or Treat, which is saying quite a bit because I really do love Trick or Treat. Not only that, but this film does pay homage to John Carpenter's Halloween, which is, I would say, my favorite horror film of all time because I just really like that film. I love, how the film looks and everything. In fact, even the opening shot of this film even sort of reminded me of Halloween. And speaking of, the cinematography here is fantastic. Some of it is beautiful, some of it is just really eerie. It really does do a great job with its long shots. It's something to really marvel at for those who are looking for something that just goes beyond just a horror film. You're going to get some really cool stuff here that is artistic. And although I wouldn't define It Follows as scary, I would definitely define it as suspenseful and eerie, especially in its sound design and its score, which is very reminiscent of John Carpenter's Halloween score, which is a pretty cool thing. And it doesn't feel like it's trying to rip it off, but it does feel like it's trying to pay homage, which I think it does it very tastefully. And what I really need to commend this film for is that it doesn't fall victim to so many horror tropes that plague the horror genre today. For instance, there's no jump scares. There's one jump scare throughout the entire film, but it really relies on its imagery to actually creep the viewer out, which I think is fantastic, and I think more horror films should be doing that. To me, it's a cheap gimmick. It's kind of like an air horn. If I were to go up behind somebody and honk one of those in somebody's ear before that person punches me in the face, and rightfully so, the person is probably going to jump. And it's not because that person was scared or anything like that. It just meant that that person was not expecting it. It's just a healthy reflex. Not only does It Follows not rely on such cheap shit, but it also has characters that I didn't find annoying. Albeit that the characters are a little monotone, and that's not necessarily because of bad acting, but just because of the nature of the film. It is the way it is. I did find myself actually liking the characters, especially the Maika Monroe character who plays Jay in the film, the protagonist, because I did want to see her make it out alive, and I wanted to see her defeat this thing. And honestly, I think one could even argue that she is a quiet yet complex character because there are a lot of subtleties in this film that, again, going back to, this is one of those films that you need to watch twice. There's a lot of stuff that you will miss on first viewing. And I think if you go back and rewatch the film, I think it will really flesh out her character and some other things as well. And one thing I have to say about these characters and the film itself is that it's not stupid. I mean, there are 2 moments in the film where I was like, okay, that's not the most intelligent thing to be doing right here. But aside from those 2 moments, I gotta say the characters, they're not stupid. They actually have a brain. And I think that is a great thing. And another really cool thing about this film is that it was made on a very low budget, and that is $2 million. And by looking at it, it really manages to do a lot with such a low budget. There's a lot of locations, the acting isn't bad, the cinematography, as I've stated before, is great, the sound design, I give it a gigantic thumbs up. It's got a lot of great ambience. I love a sound design that has some really great ambience, and this film definitely has that. It has an outstanding score. It all comes together, and I think this is just going to be one of those films that is going to be a great cult classic, and it's definitely the best horror film that I've seen so far this decade, which probably not saying much, but hey, the film is really good. Overall, it follows as an intelligent, artistic horror film that is a must-see by every single person out there who is a horror fan. I mean, really, this is a must-see. So I'm going to give It Follows a very enthusiastic 4 out of 5. As always, I'm Colyn Kirkland, and thank you so much for watching.